All right, so metal materials. So obviously you see this first example in this image is like a copper rose gold brushed metal, but we're gonna get to that soon. So I'm gonna open my material editor. So like I said, watch that video first because I will be introducing with all the settings, with the lighting and everything else. So I'm gonna delete everything here for now. So this is gonna be my dummy window. You can create windows here by right clicking on that tab by create new view. So if you want that, but I usually create, I wouldn't recommend you to creating a lot of tabs, because if you're gonna be storing that next time you're gonna be opening your material editor and VRay is gonna start rendering all of those thumbnails. So it's just a waste of time in my opinion. Always when you finish texturing something or working with materials, try to delete the materials from the material editor. It's just gonna be lighter to open and work with. Rather than just opening the material editor and there's thousands of materials there and VRay is trying to render that. So obviously you can switch it off, but you're not gonna see the materials. Or you can obviously, if it's not rendering, right? So if I'm gonna click that off, if I'm gonna drag a VRay material, obviously it's not gonna render that. So the shortcut letter is gonna be U. So you press letter U, it's gonna render. So whenever you're gonna press letter U, then only then he's gonna render. So you can select a couple of materials if you want at one time, and you can press letter U, and it's gonna render this thumbnail. I usually keep it active rendering, so real-time rendering. It's perfectly fine if you have 10 or 20 or 30 materials. It should be okay. All right, so the first metal material that we're gonna create is gonna be something like, well, I think you're gonna use this material for 85% of your time, mostly for interiors, maybe less for exteriors. So that's gonna be a clear chrome material. So literally a simple reflective, sharply reflective metal ball, right? Or metal material. So how I usually do this is a really simple step. So I'm not gonna talk about really advanced metal materials here, because that's gonna take ages to show you guys. But I'm just gonna give you the key. You're gonna have to open the door yourself. So I'm gonna show you the base from where to start working with metal materials. And from then on, you can, experiment. And in the long run, you're gonna get an idea how to work with metal materials in VRay, all right? So let's start creating our first metal material. It's gonna be reflective chrome, right? So we're gonna go from really reflective and we're gonna go to a matte metal material, right? So we're gonna make it really glossy in the beginning, and then it's gonna become more matte, right? So for example, so this is gonna be our first material, and I'm gonna call it, for example, Chrome version 1, right? There we go. So the first thing you would have to do is put the diffuse color from 1 to 200, right? So, but if you want to get that really nice contrasty metal material, that chrome material, you should use maybe from 1 to 5. That's more than enough. I usually use 1 for the sharpest look. Then for the reflection, you would have to use a number, let's just say 150, 200. I wouldn't go above 200 because that just makes no sense. It loses its potential already after 200. So that's going to be our two options that we change. You don't need to control the roughness. Don't touch that for metal materials. So now I'm gonna double click on this thumbnail. I'm gonna click show background in the preview. So we're gonna see like this small preview that it's reflective. And now the other important thing is gonna be to unlock the Fresnel IOR. So in regards Fresnel IOR, you have to, well, it's kind of, you can find this on internet. So IOR list, So I cannot remember. I think it's that one. So there you go. So you have this list on forumscgsociety.org, and you can see that the a complete IOR list, right? So you can see that you can find IOR values. So for example, Chrome Yellow 2.3, 2.4, etc., etc., etc. But the thing is, these numbers are just real life, real physical numbers, right? So it doesn't mean that putting this number into 3ds Max, it's gonna give you the, you know, the desired look. So don't try to overcomplicate things. The main thing is when you're doing CGIs and materials is to test, render them, and get the most realistic result to your eye. So obviously your eye has to be trained a bit, or the best thing is to just go online and just check how that material is behaving and looks, right? And then obviously you experiment, you know, to get that same-ish look. So for example, so if I'm gonna put, so for example, if it says here, so for example, Control F Chrome, right? So Chrome 1.6, 2.4, and Chrome Red, Chrome. So basically, let's just say 2.5. If I'm gonna put here 2.5, it's not giving me the right result, obviously, right? So I can make this a bit more reflective, but I will show you how I usually create chrome materials and metal materials in general. So literally, when you look at this material here, it looks like a complete mirror, right? Almost like a mirror. So I usually use the value of 20 to 50, something like that. For a full mirror, how I create mirrors is basically I'm using 100 or maybe 80. It really depends what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes you have these smoky mirror effects, so you can drop this to 20. It's gonna become like a smoke mirror effect, but usually 30 will work just fine. And the max depth, leave that for now. I will be explaining this a bit later on in other examples, but for now, for faster rendering times, keep this at 5, and the max depth for the refraction at 5 obviously as well. So you don't need to change anything else for now. So diffuse, we're using 1. Reflection, we're using 150. Glossiness, we're gonna keep this 1 for now. And the Fresnel, it's gonna be 30 for now. Refraction, we're gonna leave as is. Fall color, we don't need to control anything there. Translucency, nothing. And BRDF, we're using the DGX mode. That's the new model. And I use it all the time. It just works really nicely, and you can control the fall off if you have some glossiness of it. I'm gonna show you the example later on. For the options and maps, we're not gonna change anything yet, right? So we're gonna leave everything by default at the moment, right? So we're gonna use a radiance map for tracing the reflections, the refractions, but it is just gonna be a bit faster to calculate, obviously. So I'm not gonna show you the rendering settings now. I did show those rendering settings in my VRay materials introduction video, so please do check that out. I just want to keep this as short as possible, right? So I'm gonna be using brute force for this video, just because metal materials are reacting a bit better with brute force, because the radiance map, it's kind of gonna give you a fake result, and your shadows are gonna be darker, because remember that reflective materials do reflect light. So all right, so for the diffuse, I'm gonna use 1, and I'm gonna use 150 for the reflection, and everything else is by default. So I'm gonna apply this material here, and keep in mind I'm gonna be rendering regions, because obviously I'm running on my 10-core CPU. As you can see here, 20 threads, so it's kind of a potato CPU, but it works just fine. So I'm gonna be rendering small regions. So just let me check something if I'm rendering with brute force. Yes, I'm rendering with brute force. I can click that to 3 for now. All right, so I'm gonna render a region here. So as you can see, I'm using an HDRI, and as you can see, the reflections are really sharp, right? It's like a mirror, and that's what you want to get with this chrome ball material, right? So this is your chrome material. Now you can increase the max depth to 15 or 10. Is just your reflections are gonna be overall, if you have a realistic scene, your reflections are gonna become a bit more detailed. So you're gonna have more reflection bounces onto your object. But I'm just gonna try to keep this as simple as possible for you guys now. And we're gonna keep this at 5 for now for this tutorial. So I'm gonna press shift and I'm gonna drag it and make another copy. We're gonna create a couple of different options, right? So this is gonna be option version number 2, right? So version number 2 is gonna have, we're gonna try to play around with the glossiness, right? So usually, you can have really sharp reflections. Obviously that's 3D, but you can get different effects with metal materials. And now at this moment we're creating a clean chrome material, right? We're not creating any scratches, brushed metal textures, and fingerprints, etc., etc., etc. So we're trying to keep this simple now, especially for the beginners. So I'm using now glossiness of 0.95, right? And now I'm gonna render the same region, and you're gonna see that this pixelated edginess is gonna go away a bit, because obviously our reflections is gonna become a bit more blurrier. Oh, sorry, I didn't apply the material. Sorry, just a sec. There we go. So let me render that now. So as you can see, it's blurring the reflection now, and it's kind of starting to look a bit more metally than a bit more like a mirror, right? So there you go. So this is a bit more blurrier, and if I'm gonna render that region there, for example. So when I'm rendering, you can fast forward, because like I said, I'm rendering with a potato CPU. So all right, so that's that is Chrome version 2, and now I'm gonna render a, where is it, a more matte looking metal material, right? So I'm gonna render this now. Let me, all right, so let me render the bottom bit as well. So we will see, oops, I didn't apply it. I always forget to apply it. All right, so let me render this now. So as you can see now how matte looking it gets, right? So obviously you cannot even see the reflections that well, right? So that's one part, and if I'm gonna render that part there, you will see that it's gonna look really matte looking, right? There you go. So this is more like a, it's kind of gets more like a silver material. There we go. And so if I'm gonna press IPR mode, you can see how it behaves, right? It's kind of really matte looking. So that's gonna be our version 3. And now we're gonna create a version 4. So by the way, this is a really simple setup, but obviously this is your base, right? So this is gonna be version 4, and I'm gonna go with 0.4. So one thing that I want to tell you guys is, don't try to go below 0.4, because that's just unnecessary, honestly. So if I'm gonna apply this material there, so this material is gonna become really, really matte looking, right? So it's gonna look almost like it doesn't have any reflections at all. It kind of starts to look like a plastic. I mean, it doesn't even look like it's a metal material unless you're gonna maybe render a highlight there. And as you can see, it doesn't even render a highlight because honestly, the reflection is so blurred out that it's really hard to understand, is it a metal material or does it look like a plastic material? So I wouldn't try to go below 04. I usually go 5.5. I usually don't go below that because there is no point of doing that unless you have, you know, a particular material that you want to recreate and you need to get that results. All right. So you start seeing some glossy effects on this area right here. That area looks a bit darker. So 0.55 usually, I think that's like the minimum amount that you can go. And I wouldn't recommend using Fong, Blin, or Word. Those are old models. So I would recommend using GGX because that's a more correct, that's gonna give you a more correct shading algorithm. All right. So we created 4 different really simple clean chrome materials or metal materials in general. So now I'm gonna create another material which is gonna be literally the same as the first one, but I'm just gonna shift and drag it just to make it faster. And I'm gonna call it, the second material is gonna be brushed metal underscore version 1, right? So brushed metal. So this is gonna be your second material that you're gonna be creating most of the times, right? And I'm gonna show you a couple examples. We're gonna experiment with a couple of examples. Obviously, just so you know, I am going with the flow. It's not like I am copying some materials from another scene. I'm just creating these on the fly, test rendering and showing you how they can react, right? So it's up to you to experiment, but I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna give you the keys. You're gonna have to unlock the door by yourself, all right? So brushed metal version 1. So with the brushed metal, what you need first is to find a good quality brushed metal texture. It's gonna be like a white and black texture. So I'm gonna show you how it's gonna look. So I have one on my drive, 2D, dirt maps, brushed metal, and that's the material that I was talking about. So those black bits are gonna be blurred out. It's gonna give you that blurred matte looking reflection, and the white bit is gonna be a more clearer version of the reflection, right? So the black bit is gonna be blurring your reflection, and the white bit is gonna give you a crisp. It's gonna give you a crisp reflection, right? So sorry for that. So I'm gonna drag and drop that material into my scene, into my material editor. There you go. And I'm gonna run this through color correction because I always use color correction if I need to. It's just an easier control over the material. Obviously you can control this output here, but I don't like really controlling the bitmap through here. I usually like to run my bitmaps if I need to through color correction because you have a really big control over it. So you can desaturate, change the hues, you can increase the contrast, the lightness, and all of that stuff. So basically, I'm not gonna change anything yet, but I'm just gonna plug into reflection glossiness, right? So I plugged it into reflection glossiness. And if I'm gonna go to maps, I can see that this material, this VRay material is using 100% 100% of this material. So it's gonna ignore this number. If I'm gonna change this number to 0.5, it's gonna completely ignore this number just because I have this bitmap plugged in here and it's showing 100%, right? So I'm gonna change that to 1 for now, just not to confuse you. And I'm gonna apply this material on our model. And now we're gonna double click on this one and just show this in the viewport. I press F4. So now we can see that our texture is a bit on the wrong orientation. So we're gonna put this to 90. And we're gonna increase the tiling to 4 and 4. So one thing to know about filtering. So pyramidical is gonna be a bit cheaper on RAM. Some area is gonna be a bit more expensive on RAM, and none is gonna be, it's not gonna be expensive on the RAM, but I wouldn't recommend using this just because you can get a moire effect on some areas, and it can become too sharp and pixelated, and you can't get artifacts with this option. Obviously it's going to be fast to render because it's not applying any filtering on it, so it can become, or it can look too sharp. So read about this pyramidical, summed area, and none on the internet. So if you type pyramidical max, you should find something so there you go. So basically both methods, there you go. Filter is method is anti-aliasing the bitmaps in map materials by averaging pixels. The pyramidical and summed area options provide two methods of pixel averaging. Only one can be active at the time. Both methods require approximately the same rendering time. Summed area or filtering generally yields superior results but requires much more memory. Pyramidical filter requires radius max to allocate memory equal to approximately 133 of the size of the bitmap. By comparison, summed area filtering requires radius max to allocate 400%. So use summed area filtering on smaller bitmaps and avoid using more such bitmaps than necessary. Yes, so like I said, summed area is going to be more expensive on memory. Pyramidical is going to be less expensive on memory, on your RAM. So where should you use summed area? Usually I use summed area at 0.5 or something like that. If that object is going to be really, really far away. So for example, I'm rendering my parquet, like for example, floors, right? And those floors has planks, and let's just say you're standing here and you're trying to see that detail into that texture after 4 meters. So when you're gonna be rendering with pyramidical, that detail there is gonna kind of fade away. It's gonna fade away faster, and you're gonna kind of see like a blurry texture detail. So with summed area, that detail is gonna preserve a bit further away. So try to experiment with pyramidical and summed area, and obviously try to use the blur value to 0.5 or 0.4. I wouldn't go less than 0.3 because that's gonna take a longer time to render your object. So I usually go with, for example, it really depends. I can show you the results in this example now. So for example, pyramidical. So I'm gonna use 1, and we're gonna render a region. First of all, I'm gonna render the a full light cache preview. There we go. So I'm just gonna cancel that, and now I'm gonna render this region here. So I'm rendering with brute force. And I'm gonna show you some comparisons, obviously. So I'm gonna leave that. All right, so that took 14 seconds. So I'm just gonna save that. 14 seconds. Now I'm gonna switch to summed area, and I'm gonna render that again. So obviously we are rendering this from a close-up, so we shouldn't see a lot of difference. But if we're gonna be rendering this from far away, you will see a bit of a difference there. So I'm gonna save this. So this is gonna be, as you saw here, pyramidical took less time to render, summed area took more time to render, and obviously I didn't check, but I think it took more RAM as well. So now I'm gonna check this to none, and I'm gonna press render again. So I want to give you a better understanding, a general understanding about these filter effects, because they're quite important if you want to get detailed textures, right? So there we go. And so as you can see, the pyramidical is the fastest one. The summed area is a bit slower, but it's not that bad. And the none is quite slow, but at the same time it's gonna give you the sharpest results, because it's not blending any pixels, it's not filtering anything, it's just it's giving you a raw preview of the texture. So, but like I said, with none, sometimes you can get Moira effects, and Moira effect is Moira effect, I'm pretty sure you know what it is, but something like that. Like, so a lot of lines, and especially from far away on smaller resolutions, you can get this kind of a effect, right? So something like that, you get these like waves and stuff. So especially it depends if you're rendering a lot of thin lines or something like that, you know, really be careful with non-filtering, because it can give you some artifacts in some situations. So obviously, like I said, always test things out. And you know, if you don't want to spend 19 seconds on a material or on a region or whatever, or 19 hours or 19 minutes, it really adds up. So as you can see here, now I'm going to switch to pyramidical. As you can see, the pyramidical is quite blurry. I'm going to switch now to summed area. And we can see that the summed area is a bit different. It kind of gives you a bit better result in some detail. Pyramidical is losing a bit of the detail, and summed area is reintroducing a bit of that texture in. And obviously the none, it's gonna look really sharp, right? So now I'm gonna delete everything there, and I'm gonna render this again with pyramidical. Let's just see how much memory it's gonna take. So it's taking 1.8. Gonna cancel that. Now the summed area. So it's taking a tiny bit more memory. And we're gonna change to none. Obviously none is gonna be slower, but and at the same time, so 1.8.1, and pyramidical was taking, it's kind of the same. So honestly, I'm not rendering here, I'm only rendering one object in this scene, so you don't expect to, you know, take a lot of RAM just because of the filtering. If you're gonna be rendering all of your materials with none in your scene, and you have like an interior scene, trust me, your renderings are gonna go skyrocket. So be really careful, unless you're rendering some kind of a, you know, a product or a really close-up shot and you want to get all the details from that object. You know, only switch that texture, those textures on none or pyramid or summed area, and you know, you can choose a blur value of, you know, less than 1. So like I said, it really depends what you want to achieve, but try to be as fluent as possible, as flexible as possible. It depends really what you want to get, right? So sorry that I'm taking so long, but I just want to make clear of these filtering effects because they do make a difference, as you can see. So I'm gonna do another, so forget about the memory now because we're rendering only one object. So I'm gonna switch to pyramidical and I'm gonna switch to 04. So we are basically making it sharper. So I'm gonna switch to pyramidical and that should take a bit longer to render, obviously, because we're making it sharper. So I'm gonna do last test for you guys to see how it works, right? There we go. So that's number 1. And on my CPU, it took 16.7 seconds. So that's obviously a bit longer. So we're using 04. Now we're gonna switch to summed area. So it's kind of safe to use summed area, you know, on 05 or whatever. It works really well. So for example, as you can see here, so the pyramidical is gonna take equal to approximately allocate 133% of your size of the bitmap, and summed area is gonna allocate 400 of your size of the bitmap, right? So obviously it's gonna take more information from it. So that's summed area. And it actually took a bit less, which is really weird. It's kind of the same. So now we're gonna switch to none. So this is the last render. This is the first render that we did. This is the last one, and now yeah, VRay is naming this really weirdly, but it is what it is. I would want to see this as a second one because this is the third one, right? So I'm gonna save this one. And this should be named as a third one because I'm rendering this as a third image, right? So it's a bit backwards. So, but that was our first option with pyramidical 05. So it took 16.7 seconds. So that's the result there. And that's the summed area with 05. So let's just check it out. So they look a bit different, but at the same time, they both look good. And now the none. So it's really, really sharp, as you can see here. And that's the summed area. I'm just gonna render one more time with the summed area. And I'm gonna switch to 1. I'm just curious how it's gonna handle that. So obviously we should get less detail now in the summed area with a value of 1. And I'm gonna save this. All right, so that's summed area with 1 and that's summed area with 05. So as you can see, it's sharper. And the pyramidical 05 kind of looks the same-ish. It's just a really, really small effect, but obviously none is the sharpest one. So like I said, experiment with pyramidical or summed area and use none really carefully, right? Because it's gonna take a while to render. Especially it's gonna depend from your texture complexity, from your resolution, from the size of your texture, and etc, right? So I'm gonna delete all of that. So what I'm trying to say here is summed area or pyramidical is gonna be more than enough. Summed area is gonna take a bit more information from your texture, as you can see here. But forget about everything here, right? And forget everything that I said. Like I said, test, test, test. That's the only way you will learn and you will see how the textures are behaving, how much RAM is it taking, how good does it look, does it give you artifacts, etc, etc, etc. What you read on chaos group documents or 3ds max and whatever, it's fine, it's gonna give you the basic understanding, but the best experience that you're gonna get is by testing. All right, so create a dummy scene, a really simple study scene, studio scene, whatever you want to call it, and try to create materials, experiment with different filtering effects, and etc, right? So I'm gonna use here now summed area. We will switch in between pyramidical and summed area for now. I'm gonna use 05 for now because I want to get that detail from that material, right? So this is the result that we're getting now here, and now I'm gonna copy this material. So I just selected that and shift drag it there. So Control C, Control V. So that's gonna be version 1. That's gonna be version 2. So with the version 2, I'm gonna apply on this object there. So I can show this in the preview, in the viewport. And now we're gonna try to do one more thing. Well, actually a couple more things. So I'm gonna go to color correction and I'm gonna literally control the glossy effect with this color correction by just dragging this to 90, right? So drag this to 90 and now look what's gonna happen. So this brushed metal is gonna look even more matte looking. There you go. And as you can see, you're getting a bit of a different effect, but at the same time, you're using this map as a 100%. So only you're controlling this glossiness with this bitmap, all right? So this is a version 2. So now I'm gonna show you a different effect. So you can blend with this one and you can blend with this value as well. So you're gonna blend in between the bitmap and this glossiness number. So remember, 0 is gonna be black, 1 is gonna be pure white. So 0 black number, 255 white color, which means 1, right? So 0 and 255 color, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this to 70, maybe not to 70, maybe to 40. So now look, this number is taking an action now. So I'm gonna press 0.7 or maybe 0.85 or 0.9, something like that. That should be fine. So all right, so that was, ooh, I didn't copy the material, sorry about that, guys. So that's gonna be version 2, and now I'm gonna create a version 3. So paste that there, version 3, and I'm gonna keep this as 100, and I'm gonna keep this as 70. So now I'm blending this bitmap with this number here, all right? So 0.8 maybe, that should be fine. And version 3, yep. And I'm gonna select my material and apply it there. And now you're gonna see a bit of a different result. So this texture here is gonna start fading away. So it's gonna be more subtle. There we go. As you can see, this texture, you're kind of seeing it more subtle. And in this situation, you can easily, increase this 08 to 08 or switch to pyramidical, because that's going to decrease the rendering time. Sorry, it's going to be faster to render, because either way, we are removing this effect, right? So like I said, experiment with it. So I'm going to keep this even less than that 30. right? So if I'm gonna render now, we're gonna see less of that brushed metal material and we're gonna see more of this 08 number. See what I mean? So now it's really hard to see. Well, it's not hard to see, but it's a really nice subtle brushed metal material. If I'm gonna render that region there, and sometimes you can get really nice effects, right? So obviously you're gonna see more detail onto the highlights than in the shadows. So I'm rendering this at 1.5 resolution. So obviously remember this, that the bigger resolution, the more detail you're gonna see, because VRay is trying to store everything in pixels, right? So all of your images are made from pixels. So the more pixels you have, the more detail you're gonna see. So there you go. So you can see a really subtle effect. So now I can try to experiment with the filtering, right? So let's just say we can go to none and we can see how that's gonna react. So I'm not comparing rendering times now. I'm basically just trying to show you guys the difference in between the filtering effects, especially when you're trying to blend materials. So now just take a look. You're not seeing any big difference, right? With the naked eye, it literally unseeable, but it did render slower. So keep in mind to just experiment with this filtering effect. If you're showing this bitmap 100%, play around with some or none or this number here just to show off that texture a bit more, that detail. If you are trying to, if you start to blending your texture, your bitmap, try to change this to pyramidical or summed area at 08 or something like that, because you're not gonna see that much difference, right? Because you're already blending this. Let's just say 50. I'm gonna say 50 here, summed area. So summed area and pyramidical, they work both really fast, but summed area is gonna give you a bit more detail farther away you look. And I did test that out, especially with parquet floors and whatever. So you're gonna see that texture a bit more detailed further away in the distance than pyramidical. Okay, so this is, I think, version 3. So we're blending our glossiness value with the bitmap. And this is how it looks. And it looks quite nice and clean, right? A new brushed metal material. All right, so that was version 2 and that was version 3. And now we're gonna create a version 4, which we're gonna play a bit with anisotropy and rotation. It's gonna be a really simple approach, but it works really well in some situations. It really depends what you're trying to get, obviously. So I'm gonna call it brushed metal version 4, right? So we're gonna go here and keep this to 80. We're gonna keep this to summed area of 5, that's fine. And we're gonna try to put this to 90. So I'm trying to get this different result here. And we're gonna try to apply that material on our object. Remove this. And now you will see how it's gonna change the highlights, right? So I'm gonna use anisotropy effect of 07. So you have 0 and 1, the strongest one. And I'm gonna change this to 05 and the rotation is gonna be 90, right? So now look what's gonna happen. You're getting these really cool looking highlights, which is obviously changing the direction. And I'm gonna keep this at maybe 05 because that is a bit too strong. I want to mix it up a bit more. All right, let's try to render this region here. It's gonna take a bit longer to render because anisotropy, to render anisotropy effects, it takes a bit more time to render. Because obviously, whatever you are applying into VRay material, how, you know, if you apply many things, bump maps, displacement, reflections, reflection glossiness, maps, and whatever, obviously VRay is taking all of that into consideration, and it will render a bit slower, right? So there you go. You have this different effect there. So let me try to render that there. So you can even see a different effect there. So let us try to put this to 09, maybe 07. We try to render that here. There we go. We're kind of getting different effects here. But let us try to render this region here. And you can see it does work really nicely, right? Usually you will maybe use these materials for watches and I don't know, home appliances like ovens and stuff like that, knobs and things like that. And I would always recommend you um, to change the local axis. It depends from where are you rendering it. So for example, I'm just gonna make this a bit smaller. So for example, this is a local axis Y. So as you can see, it gives you a different effect, but it doesn't look that realistic. So X is gonna give you a different effect as well, which is not ideal. So for us, it's gonna be Z, because that's gonna give us a wanted effect, which I wanted. So basically on the Z axis is gonna deform um, the highlights, right? So that's about it for this one. So maybe it's a bit too big for my eyes. 90. And maybe let's try to render this effect here and see how it looks. So something like that. I don't want to over exaggerate this. By the way, I did get earlier, I did get some artifacts with, in some situations you can get artifacts with this anistrophe effect. So if you're getting some artifacts, please remove it completely or try to reduce the anistrophe effect. Maybe play around with the rotation or play around with local axis X, Y, and Z. So if you're rendering, for example, a light, for example, a light on the top, like a metal piece or something like that, you have to try to play around with those axes, because sometimes you will not see the result, right? So I want to show you a quick result here. So I'm gonna keep the same material here, but I'm just gonna make this as a gray for now because I want to show you how it works. So I'm gonna apply that there. So it's gonna be just a dummy, right? So I'm gonna keep this material as is. It's gonna be version 4. So that's the effect that we're getting. And I'm gonna apply a dummy material now. And we're gonna create another version of different materials. So I'm gonna use a cylinder. And I'm gonna maybe create this here. Oops, sorry. Gonna ungroup these. Where is it? Smooth, 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 smooth. Trying to find the smooth modifier. I don't think I have it here. There we go. So where is it? All right, so box. Whoops. Cylinder. All right, why doesn't want to work? There we go. Cylinder. All right, let me just use from the, sometimes it messes up. Sometimes you need to smooth it out to change the normals, but let me just do this cylinder from the floor. Sorry, I'm just gonna have to remove this auto grid. Whoops. Go to the front view. And I want to put it there somewhere, it doesn't matter. And I want to put this to 1 and maybe 60 there. So I'm going to show you a quick example. Somewhere there, doesn't matter. So let's just say I'm going to put this in the middle there. I'm going to snap it there and I'm going to put it somewhere there. And what I'm going to do now is basically convert it to editable poly, collapse it, collapse all. And I'm going to make this as a where is it, set ID to 1, and I'm gonna press Ctrl I and I'm gonna press set ID to 2. Okay, so now I'm gonna create a multi-sub material and I'm gonna play around with it with this a bit more. So multi-sub object, so set number to 2, and the first material is gonna be this one, which is gonna be into number 1, and we're gonna apply this on this cylinder there. And so we're gonna play around now with the anisotropy rotation, right? So we need a map. All right, so I'm gonna go to gradient ramp and I'm gonna change this to spiral. And I'm gonna plug into anisotropy rotation. So there we go. And we're gonna increase the anisotropy effect to maybe 0.6. Okay. And another thing we're gonna do is I'm just gonna copy this here and I'm gonna plug it into 2. So first things first, let's just check if we have our mapping correctly. So I'm gonna isolate this object. All right, so the mapping is all wrong on this cylinder here. So what I can do is select the poly and select number 2. So select that. So it's gonna select that, and we can apply UV unwrap, and we're gonna apply maybe 20, 20, 20, F2, and we need to maybe 20, 20, 20, maybe 40, 40, 40, something like that. And we need to right click there, 90 degrees, and we need to rotate. There we go. So something like that, that's going to be more than enough. And now we need to apply another edible poly, and we need to select this. Okay. And the next thing we need to do is apply this guy here. Which we forgot to do is, so this texture, this brush texture is gonna be on, by the way, we're not gonna use this brush texture on this first material because that's gonna be the surrounded one. So on this one, we can either use map channel 2 or 1, it doesn't matter because we're only using 1 now, so we can keep it on channel 1. So if I'm gonna show this in the viewport, we can go here and apply a UV map, which is planar. You don't need to add the box or anything like that. As you can see, the map is perfectly orientated now. We can apply another little poly, and that's how it's gonna look. So now if I'm gonna go to my preview here and go to my rendering. So now look what's gonna happen. I'm gonna render this preview here. So as you can see, we're getting the highlights here and everything working fine, right? But we can change that to 90, sorry, to 0 degrees. And we can get the highlights a bit differently now on the bottom bit. And always try to play around with the axis, right? To get that desirable result. So I'm gonna keep this as 90 because I like the preview of the 91. So we are getting the highlights at 90 degrees. And now regarding this one, can blur it out a bit. And we can change the to the Y axis because that's how sometimes reacts. So you would create this for knobs, kitchen appliances knobs, or some watches, or wherever you want to apply this brushed anisotropy effect for maybe frying pans and etc, etc, etc. So if I'm going to change this to X, obviously it's going to give you a different result as well. So like I said, try to play around with these axes. Never, forget that, oh, if I'm rendering from this camera angle, the Z axis doesn't work, something is wrong with the texture or the material. Always try to play around with the X, Y, and Z axis just to give you that realistic result, right? So this is how you would create this anisotropy effect, and you can apply different bitmaps into rotation, and you can get different effects obviously with anisotropy effects on the bitmap there. So it's gonna be black and white materials, right? So I hope this made sense. So obviously I can take this texture and apply on this knob there as well. But obviously the mapping is gonna be all wrong and you might get really weird results. So you should use material IDs just to get the right result, right? So you might get artifacts from some different camera angles. You can see a weird result there. But the point of the top bit, which is using material ID 1, should work perfectly fine. All right. So I don't want to extend this too much, but this is how anisotropy effect is working. So please do use material IDs for separating different effects, right? So that's going to be, for example, on your top knob bit, and this is going to be on your side knob bit, or it really depends. Maybe you don't want to use any brushed metal or anything like that, and just try to experiment with that. But this is how the rotation works. You're just using a gradient ramp. And remember this, that you can apply different effects here. You can double click there, you can make it darker there, you can double click again, make a black color there, and you will get different effects here. You can make as much as you want. So why there, for example, and you see you creating different effects here. So if I'm gonna render this again, you will see more of those highlights and you can get really, really nice effects, right? So for example, I'm gonna press cancel now. I'm gonna press the IPR mode. And let's just say I wanna change, so I'm rendering that. Let's just say I'm gonna change to Y. I'm getting a bit of a different result. As you can see, this highlight is looking different. And Z axis is not gonna work because it's just how it is. Just like I said, try to experiment and see what works best. But first you need to know what to press, right? And how to get that result. So enough of this anisotropy effect. I think it made you I made you a good point about it. So I'm gonna delete this guy from here because obviously you can follow my video and repeat it. Anistrophy. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this as is. So I'm just gonna apply one more time. Oops, sorry. I'm just gonna want to close this group and apply this material and see if that works. Okay, there we go. We're getting that anistrophy effect on 90 degrees here, and that should work perfectly fine. All right, so another thing is in regards to anistrophy effects, sometimes you can get, like I mentioned before, sorry about it, but I need to make this right. So sometimes you can get artifacts. I cannot reproduce an artifact right now, but if you're getting artifacts on the top bit or whatever, so for example, you're using this this material here and you're using 90 and 0.3 and Z, right? And you're using Z axis. So for example, if you're getting an artifact on the top bit, try to select all the whole ring and make it as a poly, and make an as a material ID 2, set it up in the settings there, and use a multi-sub material and copy this material and create another copy of this and make another local axis selection, so X or Y, and apply that on the top bit, right? Because it might fix the issue if you're having it. So in general, I would use this material on the sides, right? And on the top bit, I would use a different material ID and I would apply a different material. So into multi-sub material, obviously, into this, right? And I would apply maybe Y or X because it's going to give me a different result, a more correct result in facing different axes, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Because obviously this is facing another normal, this is facing another normal, and all of these are facing different directions. So keep in mind, anistrophy effect is quite sensitive to these directions. So X, Y, and Z, play around with them, right? Okay, so let us try to create a couple of more options. So now we did create a brushed metal material, and now I want to create maybe a scratched material or something like that, right? So I'm gonna create a scratched metal version 1, right? So for the scratched metal material, I will use reflection glossiness as well. Now keep in mind this, I am plugging bitmaps into reflection glossiness because that's reacting with black and white materials, and it will give you that scratchy effect or brushed metal effect or whatever. In general, how in real life, how you're getting scratch effects or whatever you want to call it, those surfaces are scratched physically, right? But those scratches are so microscopic small. Well, not microscopic, but they're really small, right? You're kind of not seeing the bump map, but it's creating this illusion, right? So with VRay, I don't need to apply that bump map into the bump map. If I would even apply that, right? So for example, I'm going to show you an example. So I'm going to apply that there, right? And I'm going to apply shift drag that guy. Or actually I can use the same one into the bump map, and at the moment I'm using the bump map of 30. So that's going to be really high. So if I'm going to render this region here, you can see how horrible it looks, right? And keep in mind, I'm rendering this at 1.5. If I'm going to be rendering this at 4K, that's going to look even worse. But the beauty of this that you're seeing is on the sides, you're kind of starting to see that effect a bit better. But at the same time, keep in mind that VRay is going to take that into consideration. So it's going to be an extra calculation for VRay. So keep in mind, you're going to get a bit longer rendering times, right? So for example, by the way, this was, I don't want to do it here. I want to make another material and call it, and I'm going to call it version 5. And I'm going to use that bump map, and we're going to use a really subtle effect, maybe 2. And I'm going to render that now. Whoops, didn't apply it. So I'll apply that there, and let's just render this. So it's really hard to see the bump map on 2. So let us try to put this to maybe 10. So with a value of 10, we're starting to see some bump maps into this area here. And I would definitely recommend running a bump map through VRay color to bump, because that's gonna usually give you a better, sharper result. There we go. Because VRay color to bump, it enhances your bitmap. And as you can see, the bump map here is just too much. It's just in your face. So we want to kind of reduce that to maybe 3. And I'm quite happy with this result. So it was just a subtle effect, right? But like I said, you don't really need to, show this in your render. Glossiness reflection, the illusion that you're making, it's more than enough. The bump map, sometimes sometimes you need to use it, but most of the times for brushed materials or for scratches, I don't use the bump map. Or if you use a really little number, sorry, a real low number, you're not gonna see that effect, especially from a distance, and especially if you're rendering a small resolution image. So I'm talking about 1.5 to 3.5K. That's a small resolution image. From 4K to 10K, yes, you will start seeing that detail if you're zooming into your image at 100%. So just keep that in mind, right? So I'm gonna leave this bump map as is. So that's gonna be Brush Materials version 5. And now we're gonna create a scratched material. So I'm just gonna go, basically this is the same material, right? But I'm gonna go to my, where is it? To my dirt maps, and I'm gonna try to find a scratchy material. So let's just say maybe we can use this one. So this is sorry, not sequence, I don't need the sequence. So this is gonna be a really drastic material, and if I'm gonna apply this material, and if I'm gonna show this in the viewport, you can see that it's a bit too much, but obviously, as I said, you can blend it out, right? I'm gonna use maybe 7 and 7. And this is what we're gonna get now. It's gonna look really bad. Well, not bad, but it's gonna look really scratchy. There we go. And keep in mind, as I remember, we're using this at 100%, right? So this is just, it looks really bad. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to blend it out, right? So glossiness at 30, and use this at 0.85 maybe. Let's just try that now. So instantly it does look a bit better, right? So we're kind of blending in between that, and even now it's too much for me. So 10, try that. There you go. Try to never, over exaggerate your bitmaps and your scratches. Keep in mind, you're gonna be making your materials 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time for your clients. You're gonna be making them as new looking materials. They're not gonna, you know, be scratched or the paint is gonna go off from your walls or whatever. Unless you're working in game development or something like that, yes, you will need to know how to create weird off materials, etc., etc. Even worse than that. But I'm talking about ArchViz exclusively, and you're going to be working with clients that are building new houses, new interiors, their marketing suites. I mean, everything is going to be new. Trust me. Sometimes you're going to get materials that are like, for example, feature wall, feature chair, feature sofa, and you're going to maybe you're going to need to create something a bit more unique, maybe a rustic wall, a rusty metal wall or panels, but that's about it. You're not going to create, you know, really bad looking old weird off materials. So just keep that in mind. If you're creating something scratchy or whatever, or fingerprints or whatever, it's try to use a subtle effect. Okay. So in this material, we have no anisotropy effects. So let's just try to render that. So there we go. All right, so I think you get the point about, you know, how reflection glossiness. So you could add this into the bump map, but I'm not gonna do that because it's just a subtle effect. And keep in mind this ball, this model is 1 meter by 1 meter, right? So that's more than enough for now. And for this material, so now I'm gonna try to show you another example. So that was version 1. So I'm just gonna remove this guy, leaf, the bloom and glare, I'm gonna leave it on. I'm gonna switch it off for more space, and I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna drag with the shift and drag it there, and I'm gonna apply a different dirt material, maybe something like, I don't know, maybe we can try to apply something like this, right? So we're gonna get a different metal material. So let us try to check how it looks. Apply that there. And so you can get a lot of different effects. And I can create thousands of metal materials, but I'm not gonna do that for now. But I'm trying to give you a base of how to work with metallic materials. So I'm gonna apply that there, and you can see that the tiling is a bit off. So I'm gonna use 4 and 4, something like that. And let's just see the preview. The preview works okay-ish. Maybe 50. Let's try 50, and let's try this 0.9 or maybe 1, right? So there we go. Let's try to see how that's gonna look. So it should give you a completely different effect. So there we go. So it's a bit too much. So because I'm using this as 50%, I will increase this to 150 because I need it a bit lighter, right? So press render now. There we go. So we're getting a different effect now on this material. There we go. So it does give you this like a frosty, different kind of looks, right? So that's how usually reflection glossiness is working with the black and white materials, right? It's not gonna work with colorful materials. Basically, what's gonna happen with colorful materials, if you're gonna apply a material, a bitmap with the color, VRay is just gonna ignore the color and it's gonna take the gray point from that image. All right, so it's like if you're gonna have this with color, VRay is gonna run through color correction and desaturate it completely, and it's gonna basically become a color. So something like, I'm gonna show an example. So for example, I'm gonna take wood texture, random, whatever, doesn't matter. And I'm gonna take, for example, this color there, right? This bitmap. So let's just say I'm gonna plug this into the reflection glossiness. So see how it's matte looking it is right now. So let's just say, and see it doesn't change the color. So let's just say now what VRay is gonna do is doing basically is he is plugging into color correction and literally desaturating the bitmap. So that's gonna be your bitmap that is gonna be applying a reflection gloss. So now I'm gonna plug it there and see, and look at the thumbnail, it's not gonna change. See, the thumbnail remains the same. So into reflection glossiness, you can plug the bitmap with the color if you want to, right? So I'm gonna delete that. Sorry, where is it? All right, so VRay sometimes gives me this bug that I cannot delete the bitmap. Okay, so sometimes just keep in mind, I don't know why, but VRay Next and maybe Max 2020, I don't know, but sometimes you will get some bugs, and I have this bug when you render something on the VRay frame buffer and with VRay, and you try to delete a material from VRay material editor, and you cannot delete. So, and when you use edit delete selected, it will delete the bitmap, but you cannot go Control Z and basically backwards and restore the material. So what I noticed that you have to do is you have to reopen the rendering settings by pressing F10, or just reopening it, and you will be able to delete it in most of the times. So I hope they're gonna fix this bug. It's a bit annoying. I don't have this with Corona. You can render and delete materials, no problem. But with VRay Next, I noticed this issue, and I read on forums that people are having the same issue as well. It's a bit annoying, if you ask me. So, reflection glossiness, I'm gonna keep this as version 2. So now I'm gonna drag and drop and keep this as version 3. Version 3, and we're gonna create something a bit different now. So I'm gonna go to my 2D dirt maps, and maybe here and maybe here, and we're gonna try to find a different texture now. What else can we experiment with? All right, so I can show you how to create fingerprints, right? So same thing. So the black bit is going to be more matte looking. The white bit is going to be more reflective, right? So we need the blacks. So right click, open preview, and extend it a bit. And as you can see, the fingerprints are black, right? So I can easily go here and plug it into there, for example. Whoops, sorry. We need to create a new bitmap. Sorry, new material. So that's going to be version 2, and that's version 3. Yep. And now we need to copy paste and plug this material over there. There we go. And that's gonna be version 4. That is version 4. And obviously, as you know, Jesus, I forgot the letters. So scratched metal. Just missed the letter. Sorry about that, guys. Well, it's not that important. I will create a master file with all of the materials that I will show you how to create. So if you want, you can support me a bit and get all the materials if you don't want to, check out all the videos how to create these materials. So, all right. So fingerprints are gonna be version 4, right? So fingerprints. So I'm gonna apply this material here again and show this in the viewport. Those are the fingerprints, and I can scale it up a bit. I'm gonna use a summed area because I want to see them really clearly, something like that. And obviously I want to keep this as maybe 4, and keep this as maybe 0.95, right? Let's just see how that's gonna look. So I'm gonna render this region here. All right, so we're not seeing fingerprints that clearly now, but we can try to increase this to 20 maybe. So in some areas of the highlights, you will see them a bit better. There we go. We're starting to see those fingerprints here. Maybe it's a bit too much, but you know, you can always reduce this by just putting maybe a 10. There you go. So something like that. And by the way, this bitmap is, as I remember, it is seamless. So there you go. So these are your fingerprints. Try to render this region here. So you're kind of seeing them quite nicely. So you can apply this on your VRay materials, etc., etc. And just don't forget that you can mix these guys up. So for example, so that's scratchy material, I think. Cannot remember now. Was it this one? Yeah. All right. So I can take this bitmap, shift, drag it there, drag it on the fingerprints, and I can run this through the mix. So run mix 1, mix 2, and blend it in 50%. There we go. So now you can plug this into reflection glossiness. Okay. I forgot it again. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna create this as a new material. I'm gonna call it 5. Plug it there. All right, so we're using a mixed material here, and we can apply that guy there. We can render it out and see how it looks. So we should get some scratches and some fingerprints, but we might need to increase that fingerprint detail. So we're starting to see a bit of everything, some scratches and some fingerprints. So if you want to increase, so right click, open preview, bam, expand that. So now you can put this to 20. So your fingerprints are going to be more visible. So 30 and 100, full scratches, full fingerprints. So try to blend it and test it out how it looks, right? We can increase this result to maybe 15 because obviously that effect is becoming more subtle. There you go. We're getting more fingerprints now and a bit of scratches as well. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. So let me render this region here. So on new looking materials, you can add brushed metal bitmaps, you can add fingerprints, but like I said, really subtle effects. Don't try to over exaggerate this. Even this is too much. These fingerprints are a bit too overexposed, so we would need to reduce that, obviously that effect there. So I would definitely go with maybe 7. Try to render that. But like I said, it does give you this kind of you know, you can see the fingerprint there. It does give you that more realistic result, right? So I'm gonna mix it up by maybe 45. So a bit of scratches, a bit of everything, right? All right, guys. So I hope that these simple materials made sense. Remove that. So now we will create some other materials. So for example, I'm going to create a new So we're gonna create some colorful materials now. So we're gonna create like a black iron material with some bump map on it, which is gonna be really simple actually. Then we're gonna create a rose gold material, and I will show you obviously how to approach it. All right. So the first material, sorry, now we're gonna try to create like an iron, black iron material. So black iron metal or something like that. Oops, metal. So I don't know, you can get something like that. For example, obviously this is really, really bumpy, but we can create that as well. And you know, for the bump maps, don't worry about the bump maps because you can get a lot of different bump maps and you can create scratches and all of that stuff. So for example, we're gonna click and remove, put the color to 3, for example. We're gonna create a reflection of, let's just say 140 maybe for now. We can test it out later on. And for the IOR, we can use 2.8 maybe. That's our black material there. And for the glossiness, we can use 7 for now, or maybe 6 for now. And we are gonna create, name black iron version 1. And we're gonna apply on our object and we're gonna render a preview. So that's our preview there. Bam, there you go. It looks kind of boring. So now what we need to do is we need to find a texture. So either we can find a texture, which is, for example, oh, that is not bad. That it doesn't have to be really, really big. So either we can use a noise map if we want to. For example, noise map. We can apply into the bump. And we can make it really, really small. So 0.5. And let me check something first. So maybe increase the contrast a bit and put that to 0.5. Let's just see how that's gonna look. Usually, sometimes I use this noise map. Works quite well, but it does look a bit fake. So even if I'm gonna put 0.1, so there you go. The scale is a bit smaller, so maybe a bit bigger, and we need to use this as a VRay color to bump. Works really well. It does enhance the bump map. Ooh, that's a bit too big. All right, so let's just remove height. We can use 204 maybe. That's a bit too big. Or maybe 02. And we will remove this a bit as well. All right, so something like that, but I really want to remove a bit of this. Okay, so all right, so we need to I will introduce a bit more maps. So I'm going to use a mix map, and by the way, I want to use a blur effect of 07 maybe on this one. Put it there and put it at 50. And another map that I want to use is going to be something different, right? So something different, I'm not sure what, but maybe we can try to use this one. Let's just try it out how it's gonna look. So I'm gonna use summed area and 05. I'm gonna drag it there. Okay, so this is what we're gonna get, and let's just see how it's gonna look in the preview. All right, so it's quite big. Let's just increase it to 5 and 5, maybe 2 and 2. Okay, that's about right. So let's just try to render this out. All right, so that's not that bad. Let's create a bigger preview there. And let's just mix it up a bit to this map there. All right, and we want to create a bigger bump map here, 35 maybe. All right, so something like that, not too much though. All right, so this is the I don't know, you can call it black iron or whatever, maybe 60. Let me render the whole image first. There you go. We can even make this, we can even try to experiment with glossy reflections as well. So let me render this one. And we can try to put this to color correction. So like I said, you can create a lot of different results, right? So you can put this to reflection glossiness and increase this to 250. You know, you can create effects like that if you want to. I mean, there is no limit what you can create with materials and textures, right? It is just you need to know how to, you know, how these settings are behaving, obviously. And there is no, like I said, there is no limits. The sky is your limit. Okay, cool. So let's just say I will remove this guy and I will put that into the reflection glossiness, right? Or maybe into this one because it's gonna become a bit lighter. So let us try to move this, to render this. All right, so this is what you're getting here, and let's just try to remove a bit of that reflection. So we want a bit more blacker, more rougher material. All right, so something like that. We can create something like that, right? So if I'm going too close, obviously you can see that the bump map looks kind of weird and fake. So maybe I will apply a 1 here just to smoothen it out. There you go. So from afar away, it does look a bit more realistic, right? And I kind of want to make this a bit more. Maybe I'm gonna blend this with that guy. Okay, make this less reflective. Something like that, and we can try to increase this to 6 or 8. Like I said, you can play around with the materials, with the settings a bit and get your, you know, your desirable result. I'm not a fan of this bitmap. Maybe we can try to use a bit more dramatic. And maybe smaller That's a bit too small. Let's try to increase this to 60. Increase the reflection a bit and decrease this to 3. Just keep in mind that this lighting is obviously really bright because, you know, testing materials. I just want to show you as bright materials as possible. So in the dark, it looks something like that. So reflection glossiness, I'm going to remove that. I'm going to control this with 0.6 maybe. There you go. Something like that. So let's just say this is your good base for iron, for the iron metal material. You can increase the IOR a bit higher if you want to be a bit more reflective, but I just want to make this as matte as possible. So obviously I did create an iron which is on my website. Where is it? So the models, it was a good iron material that I created. It looks really nice. Obviously this is with some post-production with some scratches and stuff like that. So you can do the same thing with the dirt map if you want to do that. You can add scratches by blending with the different materials. Sorry, I'm having the same issue with deleting. So, oh. So let's just say this is going to be iron 1, right? So I will show you a different result now. So let's just say this is iron, black iron. And I'm going to keep this as version 2. Right? So we have the good base. Now we can experiment. So what I can do now is basically create a blend map, blend material, which is blend VRay blend material. I will add this to the base. Okay. And I will copy this guy. And honestly, I don't really need those guys. So I will make this as 20. And I will make this a bit more reflective. So something like that. And I think that we're good to go. So I'm going to blend this with the coat on coat 1. And now what we need is we need a texture, right? So I'm going to apply some kind of a random texture, which has some scratches on. I'm going to apply into blend 1. There we go. So first of all, let's just check how it looks in the black iron. That's going to be 02. Yeah, there you go. And I'm just going to call this the same name. There we go. So, and I'm going to apply this on our object. So the scratches that we're seeing here, it looks like that. And we can make them smaller, I think. And maybe use a summit area of 05 just to sample them a bit better. There we go. So now if I'm going to render this region here, you're going to see a bit of a difference in this material. So as you can see here now, you're getting some scratches, right? Where is it? All right, let me just try something. Okay, that's fine. Let me try to render this region here, and I will show you how to create those scratches on the edges. We're having some scratches there. So not too much, but obviously you can see the result, right? So now I'm going to show you a different result, which we're going to use a shift. And obviously, just so you know, I can use a different map. For example, that one, right? So, and we need to invert this. Let's just check how it looks. All right, so I think those scratches are quite cool. So for example, if I'm gonna render that region, whoops, actually I'm gonna render the whole thing now. And there we go. So if I'm gonna render maybe here, you will see it better. So these are our scratches. All right, so I'm just gonna cancel that. And we're gonna create another material, which is gonna be using a dirt map, right? So I'm gonna remove this guy here now for now. Cannot delete again, so okay. So I'm gonna use a dirt map, which is here. So for the dirt map, I'm gonna plug this into the blend. So this is gonna be our mask. And what we need to do now is I want to invert those. So drag and drop and press swap. So basically this is gonna be the material that you're gonna see, and this is the material is gonna be that you're gonna get as an effect on the edges, right? So swap them over if you're not getting the desirable result. So my object is 1 meter diameter, so I can use this as, let's just say 5, right? And let's just say for testing purposes, I'm just gonna apply a dummy material, which is gonna be completely red, right? Bam. So you're gonna see this color in your face. So I'm gonna apply that there, and I'm gonna apply, where is it? Control C and Control V, that's gonna be version 3. And I'm gonna apply it there. And we can render this. By the way, this is not working with progressive rendering as I remember, so well, let me try. Yes, with the progressive rendering it doesn't work. You have to press the production rendering. So what I need to do here now is go to my VRay dirt, and I want to apply on all of the edges. So we need to press invert normals. Don't ask me why, really weird name, just do it. Basically it's gonna apply that red there, and it's gonna apply on each and every edge, right? And this is a bit too wide. Okay, so sorry, it is working with the IPR mode. I think it's supporting it right now, so that's fine. So I'm gonna use the IPR mode for rendering now. I'm rendering in buckets because I'm kinda feel comfortable rendering with buckets, because you see your view instantly, right? After the bucket is finished. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna keep this, but I'm gonna reduce this to maybe 3. All right, distribution maybe to 2. Try 0. There we go. So we're getting a bit more sharper, more intense masking. Fall off, where the fall off is fine. I mean, if you want, you can increase this to 1. It's gonna give you a bigger fall off, but I don't really want to do that now. So 0 there. Subdivs, we can use a bit more subdivs on this one. Is just gonna be a bit better quality, but obviously at the expense of the rendering time. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna plug this material. Well, actually, first of all, I want to put this to 1. There we go. I think that will work perfectly fine. And keep in mind, you can increase this contrast even more by plugging a, where is it, bitmap, whoops, where is it, curves, nope, I just forgot where it is. Let me check. Output, we need to find an output. There we go. And we can control this effect, or let me delete those. So if we're gonna plug this here, and if we're gonna plug this here, so now we're gonna get the same effect, right? So it's kind of strong, but I'm just gonna press IPR mode, and we can go here, go to output, and where is it? Enable color map, enable color map there, and we're gonna apply a couple of points here and there, right? I'm gonna drag that there, drag that there, drag that there. All right, so try to play around with these curves a bit. Let me reset for a sec. All right, so one more. Okay, and we want to apply another more point. Let's just try to put it there. And move it there. And let's try to move this point over there somewhere. There we go. All right, so what we're doing here is basically increasing the contrast of this, well, not the contrast, but the effect of this dirt map, right? So as you can see, this is a fall off here, and this is so sharp, right? We actually can control this, right? So we can make it smoother, and obviously we can make it wider. Sorry, wrong way. There we go. So we can do that here. There we go. So something like that, right? And we can obviously control the fall off as well. Something like that, and maybe something like that. And then we can go here and control this at, for example, 1.5. We're gonna get a bigger radius. There we go. So at the moment, I'm gonna leave this as is. Okay. And we're gonna plug this material here. And now look what we're gonna get. So we're gonna get everything on those edges. There we go. So we're getting our metal material there. And we can increase the reflection a bit. Something like that. And we can increase the fall off a bit. We can play around with the fall off of 1, for example. Let's go back to this one a bit. All right, so something like that. And now what we can do if we want to is apply some kind of a scratchy effect. So I'm gonna apply this at 5, 5, summed area 0.5. And I can plug this into the radius. So now we should get those scratches. Let me try to invert this. There we go. So for now, let me increase the radius a bit, maybe 4. There we go. And with the radius, we can play around as well. It's not going to be so sharp. And for the contrast, we're just gonna keep this for now. But remember, if you want to get more contrast, use the output node, and you should be good to go. So these are the scratches here. So let me try to put that to 100 and see how that's gonna look. There you go. So you can see the scratches here on the edges. You will see the scratches there as well. You will see the scratches on all of the edges, right? If I'm going to drag a region there, you will see the scratches there as well. There we go. And this is just an example of, you know, of couple of materials. Like I said, you can create a lot of different materials. So, you know, you can have a bigger map with a lot more bigger patches. So those scratches are gonna appear only on the map that it's showing you. So for example, you can see some scratches there. That's empty. You can see some scratches there. And there, that's empty, and you can create a lot of different examples, right? So I'm just gonna cancel this and show this in the viewport, so you can see where the bitmap is hitting it, right? So, but for this purpose, I'm just gonna use this one, right? So, and I need to invert it. So, like I said, always try to experiment and render your materials. There you go, you have some scratches. And if you want to reduce the intensity of the scratchiness, you can go here and apply this to 70. Oops, sorry, 100, but use this to, for example, the black, a more blacker material color. That effect should fade away. Or as I remember, oh, sorry. So this is controlling the bitmap, not the intensity of it. So if you want to decrease the intensity of the effect, you need to control. Now I forgot which one it was. So 20 should be this one. Blend. That's not the one. If you want to increase the effect, just basically use the dirt map, so you should get less of that effect. There you go. So don't use sorry about this blend material misunderstanding. So basically, if you're showing this to black, basically what it's gonna do. Let me just go back for a bit. I'm just gonna rephrase this. All right, so I'm gonna remove that blend VRay dirt map now. Okay, so I'm done. I don't want to mix it up. So this. So what's happening now basically is so if you're gonna use this color here, okay. So basically, it's this color is gonna blend in between the black material and your metal light material, which is this one, right? So it's gonna blend them together. It's gonna react like a mix map, right? So 50-50. If you're gonna use a black one, it's gonna be completely this one. This material is gonna be dominating, all right? Just keep that in mind. Whoops, sorry about that. So this material, the black material, is gonna be dominating. Just keep that in mind. There we go. If I'm gonna keep this to white, this material is gonna be dominating. There you go. So this is only for you know, blending them in between, right? But if I want to use that bitmap there, I can control this really easily. So for example, so now I'm using this this VRay dirt material, right? So in theory, if I'm gonna sorry, let me check one thing. So that's 100, that's blending in between. So 0 is not gonna use the map as I remember. All right, so let's do this and let's just try to do a quick experiment for you guys to see. So blend 1. So now if I'm gonna render this, it's fully rendering that guy. If I'm gonna use this as a black, it's not gonna render the second material. All right, so now it is rendering everything because it is ignoring this color. Just keep that in mind. It is ignoring this color because it's using the bitmap, right? So I can copy this color there and I can use the 0 bitmap. So now I'm blending, right? So now if I'm gonna use the black, I'm gonna be dominating there. So this is controlling how intense the bitmap is gonna be, right? So I'm blending the bitmap in between this color. Keep that in mind. So copy this one, and now I'm using the bitmap 100%, right? Keep that in mind. All right, so we sorted that thing out. So if you're controlling this with, let's just say putting at 50, so it's gonna use 50% of this bitmap and it's gonna be mixing with this color there, all right? So keep that in mind. So I'm gonna use, in this case, I'm gonna use this with 100%, and I'm gonna use the dirt map, which I'm mixing a full white color and a full black color, right? So if I want to get less of this material, I want to basically block it by blocking the color, right? So for example, if I'm gonna use this as white, I'm gonna get the full amount of this bitmap, right? And this a full amount of this color, this second color. So look at this. So now I'm gonna get a really strong effect, right? So this is the strongest effect that you're gonna get, right? So now if I want to remove a bit of this effect, I want to go to my VRay dirt and block this white color. It's like a black and white mask. Imagine that. So if I'm gonna block this out, I'm gonna get less and less of that, right? So obviously I can decrease the radius and all of that stuff. If I'm gonna use a complete black color, I'm not gonna get anything on this edge. So I'm literally removing this scratchy effect, right? Completely with this. So I'm using a bitmap of 100%, right? So let's just say I'm going to use this at 50%. So now I will start seeing you know, I'm going to start seeing the blending between this material and that material, but the bitmap is not going to show up really clearly, right? Sorry, the bitmap is not gonna take effect at all because it's a completely black there. So for the beginner is a bit confusing, but when you wrap your head around it, it will make sense. Like I said, it will take time for you to get it right, but like I said, always try to experiment to get that nice result, because it's not like you're gonna, you know, plug and play and you're gonna know exactly what you're gonna get with, you know, 50 different nodes. You're gonna try to troubleshoot it one by one by one by one, right? So I'm gonna leave this material as is for now. So you should get some scratches there. There you go. So this effect is a bit too strong for my eyes, so I will reduce this effect to 50% or so. or something like that, right? So I'm gonna keep this material as is. Um, Another thing is you can blend obviously a lot of different materials. You can use different IDs and etc. I will be creating a more complex course about VRay metal materials, but this one is gonna be only for you guys to understand the basics of how to manipulate with your materials. By the way, with the dirt map, if you're using invert normals, it's gonna apply that effect on each edge, inside and outside. So that's the inside edge, that's the outside edge, right? So if you want to apply only into the inner edges, into the inner surfaces, you have to disable this, right? So for example, invert normals disabled. So in general, I should get that effect over there and over there. I would not get the effect there and there. I mean, the radius is so small, I cannot see it. So let me try to apply white color and a red color over there and see how that's gonna look. So I'm getting a bit of that there. By the way, I want to literally just remove this bitmap because I want to show you guys the real result. Okay, so that, oops, sorry. That's blend one. I just removed that. There you go. So that should be fine. So there you go. That's the inner edge. The outer edge, you're not getting anything. That's the inner edge, you're getting. Okay, you're not. So VRay is not calculating that, and obviously he's not gonna calculate that. So only the inner edge that is close to an object or whatever, it's gonna give you that result. But usually for the weared off materials, I usually use invert normals, right? And then again, you can control the bias on X, Y, and Z axis. So play around with them. Unoccluded, sorry, radius. And that's fine, that's fine. We're gonna recreate this material really fast. And I wanted to use this at 50. And let's just keep this as is. There you go. So I'm gonna leave these materials. Obviously, they're gonna be on my master file that I'm gonna be selling you guys. And if you will want to support me a bit, you will be able to get the whole master file of materials that I created on these courses. So that's gonna be black iron 3, black iron 2, and black iron version 1, right? So I'm gonna save this file for now. There we go. And now we're gonna create, actually I'm gonna take this first material there, and we're gonna create couple of maybe we're gonna create a brushed metal. All right, so I'm gonna take this where is it, this night 3, yep, that's fine. So we can create we can take this metal there, whoops, shift copy there, right? So we're gonna create a, for example, metal rose gold. And how you create usually colorful materials is really easy. You just need to change the reflection color. That's it, because the reflection will take the color into consideration. You can play around a bit with your diffuse color, but for contrasty look, try to keep this as black as possible, not 0, but like from 1 to 5 or so. And that's about it. So for the rose gold, you can just go to the internet, rose gold, and for example, you can pick the material from, I don't know, doesn't matter. You can select the snip tool, and you can pick this color there, put it into your desktop, right? For example, really easy. So bitmap there, desktop. You want to take that guy there. And another thing you're gonna do is really easy, is obviously apply this material there. So is it, I forgot, is it gonna be brushed? It's gonna be a brushed material, that's perfect. So what you wanna do now is basically just pick a color that's gonna work correctly, right? Or you can put it a bit darker if you want, it doesn't matter, you can play around with it, right? So I will delete this ring for now. And now we can try to check it out how it looks. So there you go. So that's gonna be your rose gold material. So if I'm gonna render that out, let's see how it looks. Oh, sorry, it has the bump map. So I'm just gonna remove this for now and render that region here. So like I said, the more stuff you're gonna bump into your VRay material, the longer it's gonna, you know, render it. So for example, that is your rose gold material. Really nice material, I love this color. Black and rose gold, those are the best colors. There you go. So that's gonna be rose gold, and I will delete this. Whoops, cannot delete it anymore. So open that and delete it. And now I can try to create a gold material. So metal. So you can remove the brushed metal effect. You can apply whatever you want, scratches or whatever, but I'm just showing you how to create these colorful materials. So for example, you can go to the internet and to Google and just type gold. And for the gold, you really have a lot of different hues. So there's some like a bit greenish and all of that stuff, but let's just say I will pick this one. I will use the snap tool, right? I will use the snap tool, maybe grab that and save, capture, overwrite. There you go. So now if I drag that bitmap again, you don't need to redrag it every time. If you're gonna override that image is gonna update instantly. So for example, I will pick a color, something like that maybe. Really hard to tell, something in the middle, right? Something like that. And we can use maybe 40 or so. Whoops, I'm not gonna delete that image because we're gonna reuse it. And I'm gonna apply this material over there, and let's just try to render it out. Bam, so that's more like a gold material, right? And don't forget to experiment with the color, because keep in mind that, you know, not always it's gonna work. So maybe a bit more to the warmer side. Something like that. I didn't like that. It looks a bit too yellowish and too greenish. My eyes. It really depends. You can get different saturations in gold, especially some of the images. Like this one looks really greenish. This one looks a bit more reddish, which I prefer. But this one looks a bit more reddish as well and warmer. This is warmer as well. This is really like this is a bit greenish, and it's really hard to, you know, pick a color and apply it. You kind of need to test rendering it and see how it looks. So I'm a fan of this shininess here, and I think it works really well. If I'm gonna delete that, there you go. So that's a bit more like it, right? So like I said, play around with the colors. Sorry, I think I just removed that color. All right, so I need to desaturate a bit and make more. A bit more reddish. Saturate a bit more. Maybe darker. So something like that, okay? It doesn't have to be completely precise as long as it looks metal and as long as it looks to the gold side, right? You don't need to, you know, replicate and spend 1 hour on a material that, ooh, it's gonna look completely the same. I mean, obviously in some situations you will spend that time, but in most scenarios, you're just gonna try to keep this as close as possible, right? So you're not gonna make a gold looking material as black material. Obviously you're gonna make something goldish like or whatever. So so for example, this is a gold material. Let's just try to let's just try to create a copper material. So literally the same thing. So Control C, Control V, copper, copper. There we go. So for the copper, the same thing. We're gonna go to Google and type copper. And as you can see, this hue is a bit different. This hue is a bit different as well. That's something similar maybe. And I don't know, that's like, for example, looking at this image, looking at that image, looking at that image is a bit obviously different, right? So we can sometimes type copper color, and we can obviously, it does look a bit similar to the gold. You can have hues like that on that. But I think I'm gonna take this image. It looks quite close. So new, save that, save it on the capture as well. That thing is gonna update instantly. And another thing we're gonna do is pick a color. Something like that. So if I'm gonna apply that and press IPR mode, bam. So that's something similar. So now we can go to this color and make it brighter if we want to, right? Make it darker. It really depends what you want to do. You can desaturate a bit. Something, it really starts to look like a rose gold material, but it doesn't. It does look like a coppery material. So same thing, you can apply scratches, brushed metal material scratches, whatever pattern you want to apply. And keep in mind that reflect will take a color into consideration. So keep that in mind. So for example, if I'm gonna draw a region over there, if I'm gonna change this to a lighter color, you will see that it does not give you that nice effect, right? So you're gonna, for metals, I recommend putting this diffuse color from 1 to 5, from 1 to 10, something like that, and you should get reasonable results. But like I said, for the most contrasty look, put that to 1. I wouldn't use the 0 because sometimes you can get really contrasty dead areas. So 1, 2, as you can see, 3 is working really well. Those shadows are becoming a bit more washed out, and that's what you want. You're kind of trying to balance your lighting, your blacks and whites a bit in your render. So when you're gonna put this into your Photoshop, you're gonna apply some contrast. All of the white highlights and whatever are gonna become much more whiter and more overexposed, and all the black bits, all the shadows that was dark are gonna become even darker. And you don't really want to kill that information in post-production. I was explaining that in my bathroom, bedroom, and living kitchen course about that. Try to keep your image and your colors balanced. So when you apply color corrections, contrast, etc., everything is gonna become more contrasty. As in, highlights are gonna be more brighter, and your blacks and darker points are gonna become more darker. So like I said, you don't want to overexpose those or kill the blacks, right? So this is, I'm gonna keep this at, 1. So this is your basic understanding in VRay metal materials. So I will keep, doesn't want to delete. All right. So I will obviously finish this this video at this point. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna get a good understanding in creating metal materials with VRay. So just to finalize this, all of these materials that you see here, you're gonna use these materials like 90% of the time working with clients and realistic projects, real life projects, right? So you're gonna create basic metal materials, some brushed materials, maybe some gold materials, copper, rose gold, and some silver materials. Your best material is gonna be the chrome one. Trust me, it's gonna apply to a lot of things. In some cases, you're gonna use the anisotropy materials as well, but that's kind of a rare thing. It really depends what you're doing, but the basic things, the basic metal materials are gonna be these. And from here on, you can experiment and create different approaches, different variations, different colors, different scratches, different patterns, and whatever. But these materials are going to be quite fast to render, obviously with more scratches and with more stuff, especially when you're blending materials. They're going to render a bit slower because obviously VRay is calculating 2 materials on one object instead of 1. You have the dirt map, and I wouldn't use the subdiv more than 10 or 12. That's more than enough. You're not gonna see the big difference there. So yeah, so this video is, I think it took too long. So I will be creating a more advanced metal materials with VRay later on. But for now, this is the base that you're gonna be using this 90% of the time, trust me. So to wrap this up, thank you for watching my video, and please do press the like button. You're gonna help me a lot, guys, and with the YouTube algorithm. And please, if you can, share my courses, share my videos to other people, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna help a lot of beginners, and I'm pretty sure they can learn something from it. So thank you for watching my video, and see you in my next video, guys, and take care.